Before we dive into today's episode, I have something truly special to share. Next September, I'll be leading an intimate women's retreat through the south of France and northern Italy, and you're invited. Picture this: mornings exploring the colorful markets of the French Riviera, afternoons sipping wine, and a hotel view with golden Mediterranean sunsets. Whether you love photography, food, or just want to reconnect with your playful creative self, this trip is designed for you. Spots are limited, so if all this sounds like your kind of adventure, please visit tourwithabsolutely.com and look for the tour France and Italy with Crystal. You can also send me a message or check out the show notes. Hey guys, my name's Crystal Kenny, and I'm in love with creating. All things artistic and imagination involved. I'm an American girl who chased her creative dreams all the way to Paris, France, making a living using photography. This podcast takes you inside the stories of all the artsy folks I've met along the way and gives you that extra push to discover your creative gifts. The desire to create is deeply inside each and every one of us, and I give you the tools and inspiration to find a new way of living a more creative life. This is La Vie Creative, the podcast. Today on the show, I interviewed Chelsey Pippin Mizzi. She just released a new book called Tarot for Creativity. We talk about the history of tarot cards and how they can help unleash your inner creative. So welcome to the show, Chelsey. How are you today?
I'm really good, thank you. I'm excited to be here talking to you about tarot, about creativity, and just excited to be here.
Yeah, and I'm so excited about it too, because I don't think I've interviewed anyone combining the two, creative therapy with tarot. I find this fascinating, but I always like to go back to the beginning of where people are from and what brought them to France. You're living in the South now, so talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, of course. Definitely was not on my life bingo card to find myself here at all. I grew up in the States. My dad was in the Air Force, and so I traveled around a lot as a kid. Definitely assumed at some point I would live out of country. I had a real fascination with the UK growing up. I was a Harry Potter kid. I was a Narnia kid. I loved the idea of growing up in England and being surrounded by a lot of the history there. I was really fascinated by Celtic mythology and King Arthur. And so I really thought I would end up in the UK. And for a period of time, I did. I was a theater major and creative writing major in university in Ohio. And I did a summer interning at a theater company in London, like very much there to live out my dream. And I fell in love with a French man. And so now, a decade later, after 10 years in London together, we decided to make the move back home for him and to a new country for me. And we've been here for about 2 years now. So it's been a big change, was absolutely unexpected, but has been a really cool adventure.
Wow, that is an adventure. I love like the whole journey to here and talk a little bit about like how you got into tarot, from going from that into tarot, like what brought the two together for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Writing has always been the key part of my identity. As a kid who moved around a lot, as somebody who's had a lot of experiences in a lot of different places, as many listeners I'm sure can relate to, writing about and processing my experiences, as well as keeping myself company through writing, has been a big part of my life, my entire life. And from a very young age, I wrote from images. I found art and photographs incredibly inspiring, whether or not I was writing about imagined things or historical things or places that I wanted to go or had been. Working from images was really, really evocative for me. When I was 10, I was living in Virginia, and I competed in a local art museum's competition to write a story based on a work of art. And I won that competition. It was my first paid writing gig. I was 10, and I've been working that way ever since. It really changed my life and the trajectory of the course of my life. I went on to study theater, partially, I think, because I loved the idea of combining an image on stage with words on the page. And so all of this to say, when in my 20s, a friend offered to read tarot for me, I didn't immediately click with the idea, but as soon as she laid out the cards, I went, "Oh my God, it's what I already do." I'm looking at some images and I'm telling a story. And I was hooked. It was just this click into place of all my life I've been doing this thing where there actually existed a system of 78 images that can be used to comprehend, to process, to imagine, to understand, to speak a visual language. Here in my fingertips, I can carry it around in my pocket. And I bought myself a tarot deck that night, and I've been working with the cards ever since. The first question that I ever asked them was about a novel I was trying to write at the time, and they broke open my creative approach, not necessarily to finishing that novel as it would happen, but to rethinking how I wanted to relate to my writing life and how I wanted to relate to the writing I was doing at the time. And so it was very natural to me from the outset of my relationship with the tarot, and kind of predating that with my relationship with images and writing, to immediately connect those two things. Tarot was always, to me, first a tool for my creativity from that outset.
I love how you use tarot now to help creatives. And we'll go more into that because you're also a creative coach that combines tarot with art therapy. But I think a lot of people don't really understand tarot. So maybe you can like go into a little bit more like the history of tarot and what exactly goes on with tarot.
Of course. Well, I mean, first off, tarot has a really rich history here in France, which is like stunning to be able to get to spend some time here and to think about tarot and its French roots. Tarot really originated as a card parlor game in the 14th and 15th century in France and Italy. It was a pass the time, especially here in the South. It continues to be jeu de tarot is jeu de tarot. Oh, my pronunciation's awful.
Don't worry.
Jeu de tarot is still a really popular game here in the South. My in-laws play it all the time. I've been learning to play, and it developed from there. The idea of cartomancy, of reading fortune from cards, predates the tarot as a divination system, but the tarot itself comes from French and Italian nobility, a very specific game that then, as another way of passing the time, when people got bored of the game, they started reading fortunes from the cards. It's always been playful. It's always been creative. What a creative way to use your game to start reading fortunes. It's always been joyful, but over time became a really deeply associated with the occult, with spirituality, especially in the early 20th century. It was co-opted by a occultic order across New York and the UK called the Order of the Golden Dawn, which is where you'll see the most familiar tarot images that you're probably familiar with from pop culture. Things like Death, the Hanged Man, those really popular images, the Three of Swords, come from the decks that were created during that time. Typically, there is a French tradition of divination tarot cards that comes directly from that older parlor game edition known as the Tarot de Marseille. And it's beautiful artwork. There's a wonderful shop here in Avignon, actually, that sells hand-painted Marseille decks. I can't recommend it enough if anybody is here in town. And from that initial kind of spiritual occultic sense, you get a lot of the witchy associations with tarot, stuff like you'd see in The Craft or in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And out of that, once you kind of got into the 90s and you got into that modern look at tarot, a lot of people started turning to the cards from about the 70s onwards as spiritual tools, reflection tools, more than witchy practices necessarily. And you get a lot of tarot journaling, tarot exploration of the soul. We have these archetypes present in the cards that are really deep opportunities for self-reflection. You get it crossed over with some of the work of somebody like Carl Jung, who did a lot of archetypal work. And today, to bring us quickly up to speed, a lot of readers use the cards as reflection practices. A lot of readers are recovering from strict church upbringings. You have a lot of tarot readers who stepped out of hierarchical Christian settings and into a more relaxed, reflective, spiritual space where the tarot sits. And I won't pretend to be the only person doing this at all, myself and many readers who found creative inspiration through the cards and found that to be our spiritual connection to the cards, have then taken it a step further away from self-reflection and meditation into a really generative, playful, creative space.
That's a beautiful, like, fast-paced history. I love it. We got it all, like, just centuries. It's great. And, like, talk a little bit about exactly what's happening when you do tarot. Like, what is the belief that, you know, it's our connection to the cards that's telling us the future, it's guardian angels? Like, what is giving us any kind of information from the cards, or is it just random and you kind of figure it out from there?
Yes. So what I love about the tarot is that it is really agnostic. You can absolutely adapt it for whatever your personal spiritual or personal growth journey is. The cards are there to facilitate whatever feels right for you. First and foremostly, they're a tool. I see them as a tool. They are not the spirit themselves. They are not the higher power themselves. They're a tool for accessing something that you want to access. For some people, they want to access the divine. They want to access what their idea of God is, angels, spirits, you know, whatever. For me personally, the thing that I want to access is my creativity. And so I use the tarot as a tool to do that. In the same way, you can use a microphone to record a podcast, or use it to record music, or use it to record your notes or an interview. You can use the tarot for different things depending on what you want that final product to be. And I'd really encourage people to think about what they want and how something like the tarot can be a tool towards that, rather than feeling like it's one specific doorway into one specific worldview.
And talk a little bit about that. Your new book is coming out, Tarot for Creativity, and talk about how you use tarot for creativity. Like, for example, when you're writing a book, like, you were like, is this the book? You know, what questions you ask, or how does that work exactly?
Yeah, that's a great question. The book is full of all kinds of different ways you may like to use tarot cards for your creative practice. Every single card is covered in detail, so you can get yourself a deck, you can draw a card, you can explore what that card has to say to you about your creativity, how you can use it to prompt writing exercises, art exercises, journaling prompts, and even explore the tarot more deeply. What I really wanted to do with this book was offer a card by card guide to using the tarot as a tool and show off all of the different ways that creatives, and we are so diverse and we all do our creative work in different ways, all of the different ways creatives can be empowered to facilitate and create their own tarot practice, which may include some of those things we talked about before: divination, spiritual practice, but also just getting ideas down on paper. My favorite way to use the cards is for idea generation and brainstorming. I use it regularly for content for my Instagram, for instance. I run a tarot account, of course, so that makes it a little bit easier, but I run a tarot account for creatives. So I may pull a card and go, what problem do I want to help creatives solve today? And let the card give me some ideas. And then I'll spend some time brainstorming. Okay, so I've got the Emperor. The Emperor is a card about structure. It's a card about hierarchy, a card about authority. And so I might go, all of these themes are coming up and I'm seeing like a lot of stiffness in the image of the card. So I wonder if the way that I want to help creatives today, the message that I want to be putting out to my coaching clients today is about loosening up creatively. For instance, can you see how I got there from drawing a card in like hyper speed?
That makes total sense. Yeah, it's all connected, and I like what you said. It's interesting because, like you said, the cards can be used in the way you want. It doesn't have to be like the spirits are talking to you or whatever. It can also be even a connection with yourself and diving deeper into your own mind through looking at a card and thinking about what that can mean.
Exactly. And I guess I should touch on, I didn't really touch on the fortune telling aspect of tarot necessarily. There are a lot of valid practices, and I think going to see a tarot reader to read your fortune is great. It's fun to do on your birthday or on a New Year's, and that can be a really fun and valid way of practicing the tarot. But if, like me, that's something that you're not necessarily interested in, I'm not someone who really wants to know what the future holds necessarily. I don't want people to feel counted out of the cards because they're not looking for answers about who they'll marry or where they'll end up or how they can make more money. I want to make sure that what's available here in this book and in the ways that I show up in the world is, hey, you can play with these. You can play and you can feel free to really divine your own future based on your creativity rather than what a card is telling you have to do.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point to be made because creativity is at its core all about play. So these cards, as you said, is just originally was a game, like a fun game. So you're playing and you're able to make connections through them as well as the next steps in your creativity. So like talk a little bit more about like some other prompts like artists can use from the cards.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorites is to choose, if you're a visual artist, for instance, to choose an element from a card. So draw any card and choose an element that you see in the card and use that as the starting point for a piece. So I had a client recently who was a collage artist and had been feeling blocked. We pulled a couple of cards and she zoomed in on the randomest detail. It was a series of lines, a pattern on a cloak that one of the characters in one of the cards was wearing. And she went, I'm going to try and make the entire background of my current piece these little lines. I like that they look like tallies, like you're counting down to something. And that gave her an entire theme to work with for the rest of the piece. And so things like that, for instance, that there's nothing spiritual or witchy or woo-woo there. It's just that you've got a visual image available to you to help you spark ideas. Other things that I often encourage people to do, writers, choose 3 cards. Let one card represent the beginning of a story, one card represent the middle, and one card represent the end. And give yourself the exercise to tell the story that connects all 3. I use it a lot I'm working with several novelist clients right now, and we draw cards to represent different characters within the novel and how the images in the card can teach us things that we didn't know about those characters, can inform behaviors and patterns that would be interesting in the narrative. There's all kinds of things you can do. Actors, I think, really benefit from choosing a card that represents who they are in their character because it can inform their body language. It can inform the way that they show up on stage. And I've worked with a lot of small business owners thinking about their own kind of archetype that they want to represent as a business owner. And you can work with tarot imagery and tarot archetypes there to really understand how you want to convey yourself to your clients, for instance. It's endless.
That's so true. And like you said, it doesn't have to be woo-woo. It's just another way of accessing another part of yourself.
Exactly.
And talk a little bit about like creative blocks. So you use the cards a lot for people who are feeling blocked with their creativity. So why do you think we become blocked? And how do the cards help?
That's such an interesting question. And I think there are so many answers. I think creative block is, I use it, of course, because it's the entry point, but it's such an umbrella term for so many different things that could be happening. Sometimes we say we're creatively blocked when what we actually are burnt out and we need a break. In that case, a tarot card can be a really lovely thing to sit with instead of produce work, to pull out a card and to reflect on what it's telling you, to give yourself that space to think can be really, really healing if you're in the midst of burnout. There are a number of cards within the tarot, and I cover this in the book, that really speak directly to the feeling of burnout and offer not just advice, but validation for that feeling, which a lot of time is what we need. Sometimes we're creatively blocked not because we don't have ideas, but because we're working on a project that we're not excited about. And using the tarot can help us through reflection, through intentionally pulling cards that do speak to us, to identify what we are excited about and what might actually move us forward. If you're blocked in the traditional sense that you're staring at the blank page and you have no idea what to write, you have this great idea, but you just don't know how to get started, the tarot is the perfect cure for the blank page. Pull a card, write about what you see on the card and how it relates to the idea that you have. It's this instant opportunity to make the mess you need to clean up through your creative work, if that makes sense. I'm a real big proponent that creative work doesn't happen unless you're willing to make a mess first. And the cards offer us that kind of moment that we can dive in and go, okay, here's a lightning, or here is a lighthouse for me to flock to and start my mess from here. And then I can start to illuminate the parts that I really want to keep.
Yeah, I like that, because you have to make a mess to get started, and there's nothing wrong with that. And like you said, it's just like a starting light to kind of go from.
Exactly. And it makes the process less lonely, I think. Having a tarot deck on my desk always makes me feel less alone with a creative problem, whether it's block or whether it's I'm working on something that I don't like, or I've received criticism on a piece of work that now means I have to take it back to edits, or, any number of ills. Having my tarot deck on my desk and being like, do you know what? I'm just going to pull a card about this real quick. It gives me a moment to reset my brain. It gives me a way to cue myself to be thinking about the bigger picture and different ways of thinking. And I think that's the other thing that the tarot does so well. You asked this question and I needed to circle back to it. Pulling cards at random is so powerful because it forces us out of the linear thinking that we're in. And we're more creative when we're thinking all over the map. And block often comes from thinking there's one way to do it. And the tarot goes, no, there's at least 78 and you don't know which one is going to work for you. So why not see what comes out and try it that way, which I think can be really freeing, really gratifying, really novel, and really fun.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, just in the day-to-day, just seeing how getting out of our own selves is really helpful to do creative work, because I think sometimes we're always in our own minds and we're like thinking one way, and then someone just says something to you and you're like, oh, I never even thought about that. So it's like the cards are doing that for you as well.
That's exactly it. I couldn't have put it better myself.
And you're also a shadow work practitioner. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, of course. My relationship with shadow work was really born out of my work with the tarot. The tarot is, I mentioned Carl Jung earlier, who is the father of shadow work as we understand it as a modern idea. The word occult actually comes from the word shadow. So working in shadow and working with the dark parts of ourselves or the hidden parts of ourselves certainly predates Jung, but he really kind of claimed that psychological term and did a lot of work to advocate for looking at the scary parts of ourselves, the dark parts of ourselves, the hidden parts of ourselves, because even though it's scary to look at what's unknown or what feels dark, a lot of the times what's hiding within us, the things that we're afraid of within us, can shine the brightest light if we're willing to see them. And with shadow work for me, it comes from the tarot. Like I said, Jung has this background working with archetypes. The tarot is an archetypal tool. It deals with universally relatable and recognizable ideas, figures, storylines that we can all relate to on some level. We can all see ourselves in these 78 cards and in Jung's archetypes as well. So they go hand in hand. And the tarot, when you draw a card, you can draw it upright or you can draw it in a reversed position. And the reversed position is often considered the shadow position of the tarot card, the dark part or the unknown part or the difficult way of reading the cards. It's an interesting practice. Not every tarot reader does it. I don't do it every time. But that idea that we can look and find wisdom in something that maybe scares us or something that feels subversive is really creatively crucial. I think we can't be honest. We can't be original in our creativity if we're not willing to kind of look behind the curtain, right? Shadow work's really about looking behind the curtain and going, what's making me uncomfortable? What scares me? Where do I not want to go, but am feeling compelled to go anyway? That's an important part it's the juicy part of the creative process. And on the flip side, the other thing that engaging with the shadow does is get us a lot more comfortable with our inner critic and a lot less scared of our inner critic, which is crucial work for an artist to do, is get to know that voice so that you can decide when you want to listen to it and you can decide when you want to put it on a shelf. But you can't take authority over the things that are holding you back until you look them in the face, which is what shadow work, through addressing the things that scare you, the things that you don't want to look at about yourself, the things that feel unsavory about you. Through addressing them, we learn how to manage them and we learn how to use them for good.
I love that. And could you say that this shadow work or these things that we're afraid of could also be like our ego?
Totally. Absolutely. The ego is absolutely at play there. It's funny because Jung was a student of Freud, who of course kind of pioneered the use of the term ego. A psychologist will draw very clear distinctions between the two. But in the way that I use shadow work, that idea of ego, that idea of being self-involved definitely falls into shadow territory and is something that needs to be confronted so that we can harness that energy to be proud of the work that we should be proud of, and B, we're not letting our sense of self get in the way of the things that we actually need to express. So, it's ego's good and bad in that sense. Confidence is good and bad. It just depends on how it's serving you. And that, I think, is what shadow work is really about.
Yeah. So shadow work can kind of help us figure out, like, is my ego just protecting me and keeping me in a safe space, but I'm not growing? Or do I actually not want to do this? Because I feel like sometimes people get stuck because they don't know the difference,
Yeah. Or is my ego, am I seeing what is ego as me being rightfully confident about something? Because sometimes we are afraid that we're bragging when really we should be shouting about our work. Any one of those things could be true. And only by getting to know how we present, what feels comfortable, why things are coming up, what the patterns are, do we learn how to activate all of the parts of ourselves, quote unquote good, quote unquote bad, to serve ourselves in the best way possible.
Yeah, that's some deep work. Yes. Like, there's a lot going on there.
Absolutely. And that my book on that subject is not out for a while, but is coming. So there's more where it came from.
Yeah, definitely. And what's your biggest advice for creatives?
Is to trust your intuition. Tarot is an intuitive process. Creativity is an intuitive process. Everything that I have ever had creative success in is because I knew somewhere deep down I was going to do it. And I don't feel that way about every single creative project. That doesn't mean I don't try on creative projects where I don't have that certainty. But when I look back at my CV, all of my successes are the things that I knew over time were the right things for me. And I kept coming back to, even if they were painful, even if they were scary, there was something almost impossible to articulate. I knew I had to make it happen. This book is one of those things and continues to be one of those things as I promote it now. I know that I need it to be in people's hands. I knew that I needed to write it. I know that I want it to be the cornerstone of the business that I run. And that's like an intuitive feeling. And it has made all the difference. I've been working on this book for 4 years and I've had to, really dig in my heels about how much I believe in it. But I believe in it because I can just feel it. And I think sometimes as creatives, if we can't articulate the return on investment immediately, in this day and age, in this economy, it can be really easy to slot into, well, how can I make a quick buck off my creative skills, rather than what is the thing that I really believe in, and what's the thing that I feel in my gut is where my attention should be.
Yeah, and also serving others through your work.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely.
And how would you define creativity in your own words?
I think it's magic. I think creativity is what magic is. I spent all of this time as a kid thinking I wanted to move to England and go to a magic school or be sucked into a magic wardrobe. And all the time, my imagination was creating that for me. And I think if magic is real, it is our power to make stuff and delight ourselves through the process of making stuff.
I love that. The real magic comes from within.
Absolutely.
Well, I am so excited for this book, Tarot for Creativity. And where can people pick it up?
It will be available on shelves in Europe on the 7th of November, though maybe a little bit earlier in Paris if you're around on Halloween weekend. And it's available globally elsewhere on the 1st of October. So I think you can get the ebook from the 1st of October everywhere, and then print copies are in North America on the 1st of October, and then the UK and the EU on the 7th of November. Available from all major bookstores. It's already available for pre-order at Shakespeare & Co. and Amazon and all of the big hitters.
Wonderful. So Amazon as well. Well, that is so exciting. I can't wait to pick it up. And thank you so much for sharing your story today.
Thank you so much for giving me the space and for being so thoughtful in your line of questioning and your responses. It's been beautiful to talk to you.
Check out Tarot for Creativity, guys, and we'll share all that information in the show notes. And thanks again, Chelsey.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for tuning in to La Vie Creative. You can find more information on MissParisPhoto.com. And if you enjoyed this show, please feel free to share and spread the word for all my creative guests. We have the power to help them to keep doing what they love. See you next time.